distance in the light, vibration of a thunder.
Hello, loved ones. This is Matt Stevens, and this is the My Sober Addiction podcast. And we are happy, healthy, wealthy, and free. I did record an episode last week, and I did not release it because even after spending time editing it, the whole thing, I just couldn't, because I do have some standards, by the way, loved one, and it just wasn't quite there. I had a couple of good points in there, but overall, nah. So here we are this week, right? Anyway, loved ones, I hope you're well. And with regards to the mantra, we are happy, healthy, wealthy, and free. If you do not have a mantra that you declare over your life, well, then take that one. That's fine with me. I think it's important to have a mantra, and I do think it's important to kind of go over that, multiple times a day, but particularly before you go to sleep, establish that in your subconscious as you are sleeping, and to also say it in the morning when you wake up, because I believe that the sleep cycle is kind of when you reset. And I'm not going to get all woo-woo in this podcast episode here, but suffice it to say that I do believe it's good every night before you go to sleep, kind of set that in your subconscious. And then every morning when you wake up, to reestablish what you've declared for your life. Now, what I mean by that is because I believe that when we sleep, we do reset. It's not unlike a reboot. And I know not everybody is into the whole simulation theory. No, Matt, we don't believe we live in a computer. Well, listen, I don't particularly believe that either. I'm not opposed to that idea. Regardless of that, I do believe that, I'm not going to get woo-woo, but I will say this, because this is something that I've heard a lot of people say. They say that when I'm asleep, yes, my body is shut down and maybe even dreaming, but my soul is somewhere else. Some people even say that we go out of body during sleep. That's very interesting to think that we go out of body when we sleep, because the body needs to shut down. The body needs to do whatever it is that the body does when we're sleeping. They say the brain restocks chemicals that we use throughout the day and this and that and all that. But people say that, while my body has shut down and it is sleeping, my soul is not. My soul leaves my body. And I think that's very interesting. Now, whether or not I believe that to be true, I think it's probably true sometimes. I don't know if it's true every single night. But when we're sleeping, to the thought that we are out of body, that's pretty interesting. But that also would go along with the whole reset thing, where I do believe that we kind of reset. Whether you believe this is a computer simulation or a spiritual matrix, the divine matrix, as it's called. Either way, when you come back into your body and you wake up, I think it's very important to reestablish your direction for your life, because every day is a new day, right? We know that. But then again, there is also the eternal now, where there's only today. There is only now. Yesterday is the past. Yesterday is just a memory. And the future is just a prediction. In some cases, non-existent. I mean, there is going to come a day when there is no tomorrow, correct? I mean, we all face that, at least in this lifetime. I know I just blabbered on about why I think you should have a mantra, but I do. And I do have affirmations that are a lot more specific than that. But one thing we can't do is we don't want to start focusing on what we want, right? We've talked about this many times. To focus on the things that you want is really just saying, these are the things that I don't have. And when you put that out into the field, out into the universe, the divine matrix, when you put that out there, that these are the things that I want because I don't have them. Well, what's going to be reflected back to you is, you're right. You do want those things. Absolutely right. You do. And you're going to continue to want them because you always say you want them. See how that works? Anything you say is what's going to be reflected back to you. Now, don't get all cute with me and say, okay, Matt, I am a multi-billionaire. Well, there's a little bit more to it than that. And I'm not getting into manifestation practices right now. That's not the point. But when we do our mantra or our affirmations or our declarations, whatever you want to call them. Now, affirmations and declarations are a lot more specific than a mantra. Another thing that I've heard people say is, I am becoming the best version of myself. No, don't do that either, dear loved one, because when you say you're becoming something, guess what's going to be reflected back to you? That you are becoming something. Not that you have become something, not that you are something, that you are becoming it. And every day I wake up, I'm becoming the best version of myself. Every day, what's going to be reflected back to you is, yep, you are becoming it, but you ain't it. You ain't made it yet there, big fella. So you see, and I know some people think, well, come on, Matt, you don't have to be that specific. Oh, yes, you do. Words are very powerful. Yes, you do need to be that specific. I am this. I am that. And I've even talked about on the YouTube channel, I've talked about employing the help of trees. Oh, no, man, we ain't no tree hugger. Oh, yes, you are. You better get to be one. Okay, trees, we all know, are also living things. And in a lot of cases, they're much older than we are. And they are also certainly much bigger than we are. Their roots go down into the earth. They branch out all over the place. They interact and network with other trees, which are also alive. And they vibrate into the earth, just like any other living thing. And they also reach way up into the sky with their limbs and all that, right? And leaves that all vibrate. It all vibrates. Every living thing vibrates. And here's one thing I know from reading Stalking the Wild Pendulum by Itzhak Bentov, one of the most genius books I've ever read, and I highly recommend it, although it's very hard to follow, especially if you're a spiritual guy like me and don't get into sciencey stuff. If you like sciencey stuff, you'll love it, but whatever. Anyway, it's blending science and spirituality. And actually, those are the books that I have been trying to read lately. And I do mean trying, because I'm a spiritual guy. You start throwing science in there, and I'll struggle with following it, but I'm getting there. So anyway, Itzhak Bentov's Stalking the Wild Pendulum. It talks about how every thought creates a vibration that goes out into the field. Most people can follow along with that. Most people are okay with that. So when you have that thought, it goes out into the field. Well, what if you go and you find yourself a tree, and just intuitively, you'll know which one is yours. So I'm not going to spend time on that. You'll know. Go and put your hands on that tree and say your affirmations. Say your mantra. Say your declarations over your life. Is the vibration coming out of yourself out into the field? Is that enough? Yes, it is. But if you could get some help from that great big tree out there, something that's going to vibrate with you, vibrate your message out into the field with you, why wouldn't you? And I'm not saying every tree is going to want to cooperate. They might think, not this guy. I'm kidding. I don't really know. All I know is intuitively you will know what to do. I'm just trying to plant this seed in your mind. Maybe, just maybe, look into getting the help from the big guys out in the backyard. So anyway, loved ones, now that I've spent all that time on mantras and what to do, what not to do, and how to make your signal to the universe, to the divine matrix, even stronger, I'm going to finally get around to talking about what I want to talk about. I did do an episode already this week, yes, Well, I'm sorry, last week, but I did not release it. It just wasn't that great. But I did have a very good point in it. And in that one, I was talking about how right now, as I'm recording this today, while I'm recording this is Saturday, October 12th, 2024. There's a lot of really bad stuff going on in the world. We could even say some very evil things going on in the world right now. I'm not necessarily going to go that far, only because I believe that it's all got a purpose. If we look at all of this from the 30,000 foot view, which is sometimes not easy to do, right? But if we look at all this from a 30,000 foot view, we realize there's a reason for all of this. The point that I made, though, in the last episode that I did not release, was like in the Kybalion, which I reference a lot, in the principle of polarity, it says everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. What that really means is, for example, hot and cold, they're really the same thing. Their temperature. Hot and cold are just two ends of the same stick, right? Now, if you have something that is hot and you add a little cold water to it, well, now is it more cold or is it less hot? It's kind of the same thing. Something losing temperature would be less hot or more cold. And at some point, they kind of meets in the middle where you're like, I don't know if this is hot or cold. Another good one is the swing of the pendulum. If a pendulum swings so far to the left, then it must swing equally as far to the right. How we can apply this to the things that we see going on in the world, that we may even say those things are evil. Maybe they are. But here's what we know. If something could be that evil or that bad, the one thing that we know is that if that's true, then there must be something that's equally as good. It has to be. If something is this bad, it's proof that there is something that is equally as good. So if we get nothing more from the bad things that are happening, at least let it be that. There are a lot of people out there, such as the lovely Kitty. It's uncanny. She can just about find a silver lining in anything. She can just about look at any situation and find something good in it. But then you look at the things that are going on in the news today, and I don't talk about current events much, and I certainly don't talk about politics. And yes, I have my opinions, but whatever. But there's some things going on in the world today that are just utterly shocking. So bad that even Kitty may have a hard time finding a silver lining. But even if that's the case, okay. At least, if nothing else, at least it shows us that if something could be that bad, well, then at least it shows us there must be something that is equally as good. So anyway, that's what that episode was primarily about. That was kind of the theme of it. But if you'll notice just then, I kind of summed all that up in a few minutes. The rest of the episode was, well, it just wasn't up to snuff. That's all. But I had done a YouTube video about that. And another kind of funny thing, I guess, I've noticed about, since I've been doing these YouTube videos, I noticed like in the podcast, I may cover one or two topics in an episode. And what's funny is when I'm outlining an episode or maybe when I'm editing an episode, whatever, and I will kind of isolate a topic and be like, I'd like to do a one-off on that, or maybe expand on that, or whatever the case may be. And then I'll do a video about it because the videos are usually kind of one topic deals. So I will do the video and I'll say something like, so I was editing a podcast, or I was outlining, whatever. I was doing something to do with the podcast, and I isolated this topic and I wanted to do a little video about it. So here we are. it's kind of funny how I will, in that video, I'll mention the podcast. But then I'll come on the podcast and I'll say, so I was doing a video about blah, 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 blah. So in the podcast, I mentioned the video, the YouTube channel, and the YouTube channel, I mentioned the podcast. It's like watching a game of Pong going back and forth. That's just an observation that I made that I thought was kind of funny. It's funny to me anyway. You may get it. I don't know. Anyway, loved ones. So yeah, that last week episode, I've got it, and it's fully edited even. It just wasn't quite good enough. So I'm going to move on. Bear with me. And I've talked in the past about roadblocks in life. Even when we're doing all the right things, even when we have the right mantra, we have the right everything. It's like, Matt, I'm doing these declarations, or Matt, I'm doing all the right things, and it's just not manifesting. It's just not coming into my field. First of all, when we do create in our reality, we got to understand we live in 3D, and 3D is slow. Okay. When we create in the 5-dimensional space. And I know that a lot of people are like, huh? What's that got to do with what's that got to do with addiction, man? I ain't got nothing to do with addiction. I've already just addressed that issue. We don't always talk about addiction on here. Why? Because we're addicts in recovery and we're moving on with our lives. So there you go. But anyway, we are creators outside of this 3rd-dimensional existence. But in these avatars, in these bodies, we are in 3D. We do have to live in space and time. Now, your soul, the part of you that is an immortal, all-powerful being, is outside of it. And it can create on the fly. It can create immediately. But kind of like if you're looking at the elliptical plane, the orbit of the Earth around the sun, right now, today, October 12th, 2024, the Earth is in a particular position in space and time. And then on, let's say, November 24th, 2024, the Earth will be in a different place in space and time. That place already exists. That place is there. In the 5th dimension, it's there. Actually, it's there in the 3rd dimension. But it's taking the Earth 1 month to catch that, to get to that place in time. So when you do create in your field, it's already there. It's in your field. It just may take your physical avatar a certain amount of time to catch up to it in 3D space and time. So don't give up on it, because as soon as you give up on it, poof, it disappears. I'm getting back to the roadblocks. When we look at the roadblocks, see, before I've mentioned roadblocks are proof that we're on the right track. Roadblocks are proof that we're on the right road. Otherwise, they wouldn't be roadblocks. Roadblocks are put up in our way by who? Well, that part we can get into. I'll go into conspiracy theory. I'll do it. I'm not scared at all. I'll get into conspiracy theory with you all day, every day. We can go into the who's, air quotes here. Who are they? Is it the Illuminati? Is it the cabal? Is it the elites? Are they aliens? That's cool, huh? Aliens. Is the Earth really a zoo? Is it a farm? Is it a prison? You see, there's so many different little conspiracies we can go into. Anyway, but who is they, and what would they gain from holding you down? Well, that much I don't know. I do know that there is an adversary. I do know that, and I think most people would agree. I do believe that there is a force in this realm. There is a force in the construct, in the world, that does benefit from holding humanity down. What is that benefit? Who is the force? Who is that? Those I don't know. I have my theories. I even have my beliefs. But that's not what's important right now. What I'm getting at is we must be, we meaning people, we must be, we have to be extremely powerful. Why? Because there are so many things that are built into our reality that try to convince us otherwise. And in most cases, people are convinced otherwise. Then when you start getting past all that and you start realizing, yeah, I am a divine spark of the Creator. I am a divine spark of God. I do have the same creative powers as God. It says so right there in your Bible. Whatever your Bible is, be it Christian, be it Hindu, be it whatever is your faith, it always says you are a very powerful creator. You are a divine spark of God. So there must be some adversary. There must be some reason why we come here, and we don't know our true power. We have to discover it. And that is a good podcast episode. And I think I'm going to make a note of that. My next one after this is going to have the lovely Kitty as a guest, because I've decided I'm going to have her every 20th one. So 20, next one after this one is 40. You get it. But there may be 41. We can talk about that. What is it that I'm going to get into later? Why we must come to this lifetime not knowing our true power. And then we later discover it. That's a good episode. Episode number 41. That's going to be that one. Or maybe I'll do it on the YouTube channel. I post videos on Saturday and Wednesday, and I may throw in some other ones in between there if I feel inspired to do so. We must be extremely powerful. Why? Because there's so much built into our reality to try to convince us otherwise. There's so many people who just have been beaten down, or they never really bloomed. We can't save them all. There's only one person you can save. You can only save yourself. And by doing so, inspire some others to also save themselves. As far as saving other people or saving the world, there's a quote. I don't remember who said it, but the quote is, you're going to leave this world just as evil as it was when you found it. In other words, don't try to save the world. Learn from it and inspire others to also do that. Anyway, but there are so many roadblocks thrown up in front of us. And that usually seems to happen, doesn't it, when you are doing really good, doesn't it? When you really finally get rolling, when you're starting to see some progress. You've been doing all the right things. You've been, maybe you've started a meditation practice, and you've been really focusing hard on saying your mantras and saying the things and doing the things that it takes to create your own reality. And you're actually physically taking the steps. You're not just saying the programming. You're not just saying the things you're supposed to do. You're not just thinking the good thoughts. You're not just vibrating on that wavelength. You're physically moving in that direction. If you want to open a business, you're physically taking the steps that it takes to open the business, because we do live in a 3D physical realm, a 3D physical world where vibration and thoughts are not enough. And like I've said before, that's the problem with law of attraction. Law of attraction just tells you that, well, if you have the right thoughts and you vibrate correctly, you can't help but draw that life that you want to you. Everything they say, everything about law of attraction is true, but there's one thing that's kind of omitted. We live in a realm of physicality, so we must do physical things. But it is a physical realm that exists in a mental construct, yes. But we have to abide by the rules of this realm. Even though we know all this is just mind. All this is just a mental construct in the mind of the Creator. That's true. But while we are in this physical existence right now, during this lifetime, you must abide by those rules, which are, you have to get into action. You have to physically make moves. You have to physically move, like Jason Brashears of Archaics says, and I know I sound like I sweat this guy to death. Well, he's got some really good research, but still, you have to physically move in the direction of your goal. The beautiful thing is you don't have to do it all by yourself, because your higher power will cause things to happen for you to make things easier, that bring the right people into your life. Let's say you're starting a service business. Make it so that you can buy the right equipment. Or maybe that domain name becomes available. that one that's just perfect for your business. Whatever it is that you're trying to manifest in your life, your higher power, when it sees that you are serious, when this construct or whatever, or the field, whatever you want to call it, when it sees that you're serious, that you're super serious because not only do you keep declaring it that this is what I am, but you're actually showing it by putting the actions in and saying, look at me, I'm actually doing it. Once you show it, this is serious business, I'm not playing around no more. That's when it'll be like, okay, fine. You're not playing around no more. That's what you want. That's what you get, because everything will just be reflected back to you. There's that one part, we do live in a physical world, right? So anyway, loved ones, when you see those roadblocks, when you see all those negative things popping up, don't let that discourage you. In fact, let that encourage you, because that means you are on the verge of a breakthrough. That means whatever the adversary, whatever you want to call it is, whatever you want to call that thing is, you can call it the devil if you want to. I don't care. And there is an adversary. Anything that's good means there has to be something equally as bad. It's just the swing of the pendulum. So, loved one, let that encourage you to push through. You see something standing in your way, that's a good sign. That means I must be on the verge. What I'm going for must be on the other side of this roadblock. Otherwise, there would be no roadblock. If I was on the wrong road, what would be the point of a roadblock? I'd be like, oh, hell, let them keep going down the wrong road. That's cool. But when you're on the right path, your adversary is going to try to divert you away. Going to try to keep you in line with programming. But when you're breaking out of the programming, when you're going your own way and creating that reality of your dreams, your adversary is going to be like, nope, I can't let that happen. Dear loved one, when you see those roadblocks, when you see those curveballs thrown at you, just smile and push through it, because that's a great sign. And if you want to talk about addiction, when you feel those urges, when you feel that temptation, maybe when you feel like, oh God, or when somebody comes around you that's tempting you, maybe somebody from your past and they're still using, hey man, I got some dope. Look at that as being like, oh yeah, I see what this is about. Look at that as encouragement. Because it is encouraging as long as you look at it for what it is. Anyway, loved ones, I hope that was good. It's been a long time coming. I've been working on this podcast. Well, not really. Because last week I had a whole episode done. I'm like, nah, not putting this one out. Sorry. And I tried to re-record it even. And I'm like, no, this week just ain't happening. But I have gone every other week. I think now that I've got the YouTube channel going, the podcast may go to bi-weekly. I'm not entirely sure about that. Let me know what your thoughts are. Please check out the YouTube channel, and if you have not yet, please subscribe. It's just under Matt Stevens, MSA. Podcast is also there because YouTube now has a honest-to-goodness podcasting platform. And I'm still on Substack writing there, just my more weird, blurby type stuff. So anyway, loved ones, that's what I got. Oh, also, though, on the podcast and in the description, the service that I use for hosting my podcast episodes, they've put in a chat with Matt feature on there, which is pretty cool. So if you have a question, a comment, if you think that going to bi-weekly and doing more on YouTube would be a good idea, let me know what you think. That would be appreciated. So anyway, loved ones, as I said, that's what I got, and I love you, and I will be back directly.
There is a distance